As I left the house that morning, I said to my wife, I told her, hey, I've got a meeting in the city at World Trade Center. Another plane struck the second tower. There was a little bit of confusion at the time. As one of the towers collapsed, we lost our ability to communicate. So I was sent out as a relay just to pass information. Saw people jumping into the water trying to swim to Brooklyn because the smoke plume was just forcing people off of the island. So, made the call of all available boats.
All available boats. This is the United States Coast Guard. Anyone who wanted help with the evacuation of Lower Manhattan, report to Governor's Island.
There were over 100 vessels that ended up responding to that radio call. And tugboats, we had dinner cruises, we had, some of them were very large, the Staten Island Ferry, and all types of vessels were there. After the evacuation, we had all this capacity, all these boats. We're bringing in relief supplies. We're bringing in doctors, steel workers, acetylene, oxygen, things to cut through the steel, all types of supplies.
A manhunt is underway for the shooter who killed the conservative political activist. The close ally of President Trump was speaking at an event at Utah Valley University yesterday when authorities say someone on a rooftop fired a single shot. The shooter then escaped into the chaos of the crowd. Moments ago, though, officials gave an update on their investigation, and it does sound like they have very, very good information about the person who they are chasing, and video of his moments after the shooting. They say a weapon has been recovered. Listen to this.
We have recovered what we believe is the weapon that was used in yesterday's shooting. It is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled. The FBI laboratory will be analyzing this weapon.
Our breaking story at noon, criminal charges dismissed against a group accused of trying to falsely certify President Trump as the winner of the 2020 election here in Michigan. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Whitney Burney. It's a major blow to Michigan's Attorney General and other prosecutors as similar cases in 4 other states have been hit with setbacks. District Court Judge Kristen D. Simmons said in a court hearing that more than a dozen Republicans accused will not face trial. The judge saying she found no intent to commit fraud in their actions. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel is outraged at the ruling. Here's what she said in a news conference she held on Zoom just a few moments ago.
We are talking about 16 people who conspired to nullify the votes of the other 2,649,851 voters who happened to disagree with them. The evidence was clear. They lied, they knew they lied, and they tried to steal the votes of millions of Michiganders. And if they can get away with this, well, what can't they get away with next?
Hey, good evening. This is September 11th, 2025, and this is episode 51 of The Whiners. So good evening to you on this day, which is a day I think that could unify Americans. We have our wonderful guest, Christina Bobb, with us, author of a phenomenal book that I think friend and foe of President Trump should read, which we'll get to this evening, Defiant. Inside the Mar-a-Lago raids, and talking about lawfare. And Christina, I mean, January 6th committee subpoenas for testimony and documents, the Mar-a-Lago raid, the January 6th investigation, Dominion, 1.6 billion, all kinds of lawsuits, and still many pending. You're a Marine Corps Judge Advocate General when you were in the service. You're now an attorney for Judicial Watch. I mean, it's really quite the CV. So on this day, I certainly toast to you and your work for the country. And before I take my sip, no, I'll take my sip first. Jeff, what are you drinking tonight? Since we're the whiners, we got to double check what everybody's drinking.
I haven't had a Trader Joe's bottle in a while, so I'm having a Trader Joe's Syrah. I tried to stay away from Trader Joe's, not because they don't have good wine, but because I know they don't have Trader Joe's stores everywhere. But anyway, that's what I'm drinking tonight.
I stay away from them because they don't have good wine. So anyway, I'm drinking my standard McManus Cabernet, award-winning Cabernet Sauvignon.
All right.
And
Christina, you're drinking water?
I am drinking water tonight. Yes.
All right. Very good. So you're the designated driver.
I will be the designated driver. Yeah.
You know, I'm one of these people who considers himself, you know, maybe more aware than the average person of the lawfare, more bothered by it. So I was surprised by the reaction I had to your book, which was it made me very angry. You know, I guess it's the first time I heard such a detailed account by an insider, and I really felt, well, I can't say I felt how you felt, but I can imagine somewhat maybe.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. I was hoping to convey that. So, yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It's been a lot, and I don't think people understand how bad it is. You know, they see lawfare against Donald Trump in his personal capacity and they go, oh, he's a billionaire, he's famous. They see the lawfare against him in his official capacity and they're like, oh, that's the government fighting, you know. But I don't think they realize the level of lawfare that's coming against normal, everyday Americans who are not billionaires, who are not famous, who are losing their homes. It's causing stress in their families. It forces Americans to pay a very high price just for their political beliefs. And so I hope that Defiant helps people to understand how bad it is right now.
You know, that's one thing. I think that's a really good point, because I think it's difficult today with the way that news is written for people to separate their feelings about Donald Trump and the fact that you can disagree with him on a policy, but you should absolutely oppose an unjust act that is run against him because of what you just said, that it's also against American citizens. I want to take a quick second on this because I do know something about this. Back in 2018, we got a legal brief from the 18th Circuit Court, which basically showed that the court dismissed a 47-year prison sentence and or indictment, I guess, against my wife for her political activity.
Wow.
And it was for back then and even earlier when this thing started in 1990, they didn't say things like what they said about you. They didn't make it a national security thing, but it was political. They said it was intimidation, robbery of victims over 60 years old. And actually all the records had been destroyed in floods. And so it took this circuit judge weeks and weeks to find the documents. I don't even know where they find documents to then send it to us, because my wife couldn't actually work because every background check this came up that she was on an FBI list or something. So what you're saying resonates with me directly for that reason. And I'm sure there's many other people like what you talked about with January 6th individuals who were just basically just regular people.
Yeah.
Not radicals.
Yeah.
They were not radicals. And the leftist media, which apparently was all of the media, really demonized them unfairly. And they did not, I think the part about the January 6th stuff that was so infuriating to me was they were like, oh, these people have been convicted. They're convicted insurrectionists. No, like that's the narrative. If you ask the average American, they're going to be like, oh yeah, they were convicted of insurrection. No, they weren't. No one was even charged with insurrection. We've been throwing the word insurrection around for 4 years and it never happened. It was never a legal issue, never once. But they really, really wanted it because they wanted to disqualify Donald Trump. But no one was ever charged with insurrection. And the convictions that they got were manufactured. They weren't real. They hid evidence from the defense. They had their witnesses. I can't say they lied, but they misremembered, or for whatever reason, the testimony didn't match the videotapes. And they destroyed lives. I mean, Jake Lang was in prison for 4 years with no trial. And he never even went in the Capitol. I mean, it's
and
just,
some of these people are solitary confinement too, right?
Yeah,
they're not even
Jake was
going to
one.
trial. They're just languishing. As you said throughout the book, the process is the punishment.
Yeah, and that's what they do. And it's at the breaking point. I mean, we can't continue to endure this because it's costing average Americans their homes, their jobs, their retirement, their families, to the point where we either win the fight or we lose the fight. But we can't continue to pretend like the fight's not happening, because we'll end up losing if we do that. So it's really, really important what President Trump is doing right now, or having, Pam Bondi do with DOJ by investigating all of this. And hopefully we'll see some people held accountable.
And also,
you said something that really blew my mind, because I thought I was up on all the pertinent details concerning January 6th and how people are blaming Trump, even though he just said, hey, march peacefully and all that. But a lot of his critics are saying, yeah, he said that, but he riled them up. And he failed to act when it became apparent that there was rioting going on. What I'm referring to is that you said he tweeted to stop the ruckus, or whatever the wording was, and it was censored?
It was taken down, yes. He was trying to tweet out to tell people to go home and be peaceful, and Twitter censored it and took it down.
Why isn't this well known?
I don't know. I mean, well, because it's censored, right? They don't want people to know that. But yeah, and you can find it now if you go look for it. Hopefully I cited it in the book. So the video is available now. But he did a video, I think like less, a minute maybe, where he was talking to the American public, telling people to go home and, don't fight.
Well, did it
don't
happen soon enough after the violence broke out that it should shut people up and stop them from complaining that he didn't do what he should have done?
Yeah, he actually tried to do that before Nancy Pelosi finally said, okay, call in the Capitol Police, the guard or whatever, where she actually finally made that decision way, way late. Yeah, prior to her doing that, President Trump tweeted out a video telling everyone to be peaceful and go home. And Twitter took it down.
And you're saying this was the 10,000 troops or something like that were standing by?
That's a different issue. President Trump wanted to bring them in prior to January 4th.
The mayor had asked for them to be there, if I recall, on standby.
I think there was discussion about it. President Trump approved it. He said, yes, I'm approving 10,000 troops. And then at one point during the 6th, I think it was Mark Meadows, and I'm sorry, I believe it's in the book, but Mark Meadows tried to, whether it was calling DOD or he spoke with someone at DOD and said, get the guard in here. And it was not Donald Trump that didn't activate people. He approved it. He authorized it and, had them on standby. And Nancy Pelosi and Muriel Bowser and the liberals that are in charge of Washington, D.C., or were in charge of Washington, D.C., and were in charge of the Capitol, refused to activate them.
Right. It's not really even his responsibility. A lot of these people say, oh, the buck stops here, the president. But that doesn't mean the president does every little thing. And in fact, if you go to the D.C. National Guard website, it says that it's customary for authority to activate the Guard to be delegated to the Secretary of Defense.
Right. But I mean, look at what's happening right now today in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump has activated the National Guard and everyone's freaking out about it, going, oh, he's a dictator. He's occupying D.C. He's doing all these terrible things. Well, yeah, because last time he didn't do that, there was a problem. So, they just, no matter what he does, they're going to complain that it's wrong.
Right. Well, there's so much corruption, so many things that we could highlight, but why don't we start with the Mar-a-Lago raid, since that's the subject of your book. And you were actually there. You were kind of roped into it by, I think, Evan Corcoran. Is that the attorney's name?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think yes, I was kind of roped into it, but I don't think he meant anything, malicious or anything like that.
It sounded like they just needed somebody there.
Yeah, they just needed they needed a witness, basically. Right. They were handing over documents and they needed someone to witness it. And so I agreed to do it. So
did it even have to be a lawyer? Could it have been like somebody who works at the 7-Eleven down the street or something?
Well, it had to be someone that worked for the president. But it didn't have to be a lawyer. But I am a lawyer, and so I've engaged with federal investigators before throughout my career. Right. So I was probably best suited to do it. But
let's explain to the audience what I mean. I know from reading your book that you don't harbor any ill feelings towards Evan, but what I was alluding to was that he wanted you to sign that that you are taking custody of the boxes, but you didn't know what was in the boxes.
Right. And you're allowed to do that. That's perfectly lawful. So I was designated the custodian of records. So the custodian of records is just the person, basically you sign the receipt saying, I am witnessing, this box of documents transferring from, this custody to this custody. That's what a custodian of records does. And you certify to what you know about it. And Evan had drafted it, and the way it originally read to me, I didn't like it because it sounded like I was part of the search or review, or I knew what was in the documents, and I wasn't. I had no idea what was in it. I hadn't seen them, and didn't want to. I didn't need to see them. The law does not require the custodian of records to have been part of that process. All you do is say what happened. So I was fine with the fact that I wasn't part of the search or review. I just wanted to make sure that the language reflected that, so that there was no confusion about what my role was.
And one crazy thing after another happened. I mean, I don't know where to begin. Like, one of the things that really stood out to me was that Trump walked into the room and said to them, hey, anything you want to see. But then they acted like he never said that. And then when you were called in, I guess, was it for testimony or just questioning?
Both. I did both. Yeah.
Right. I remember they were asking you, well, why did you believe him? It's like, well, what are you supposed to say?
I know that was the weirdest part of the conversation. There was no reason for me to not believe him. It's not like he went like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. There was no reason for me to think he was lying. I think what they wanted was for me to go, yeah, he said that, but I knew, because we'd had another conversation, I knew he really didn't want that to be the case. But we hadn't had another conversation. He had never said to me, hey, Christina, I'm going to put on this really great show. Just go along with it. That wasn't, but that's what they wanted because that fit their narrative. But that wasn't true.
Well, your head must have been exploding when they're asking you, why did you believe
I had no idea. And it wasn't until, I hope I made this clear in the book, but it wasn't until afterwards when I was talking to my lawyer and I was like, what the heck was that about? Like they came at me 6 different ways on that. And I couldn't understand what they were getting. I'm an attorney and I've deposed people, I've interrogated people. And so I kind of know how to get through it as quickly as possible. Like, what information are they looking for? Just give it to them and let's move on. Right. I could not figure out what they were doing with that. And it wasn't until afterwards that my attorney was like, they can't fathom the idea that Donald Trump was just being honest. That just didn't comprehend.
Well, it also sounded like they couldn't, they felt that they could just disregard what he said themselves or their boss.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. They're like, we don't have to listen to the director of the FBI.
That's your boss.
Actually, you do. Like, what do you mean you don't have to listen to the FBI director? So
it's a strange argument. They would have been better off just denying that Trump ever said that they can have access to everything. If you're going to lie, that would be a more logical, believable lie, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, except you had 2 witnesses that would say, no, he did say that.
That matters to them, the truth?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Now, they also said, though, and I've read what you said, the Presidential Records Act has no criminal penalty whatsoever. And by the way, every president since Ronald Reagan at least
Yeah.
has carried documents out, and you can read, as you went through a number of these presidents, where they kept their documents. So why is it, though, that you go out and read, even today, the news stories are that there are punishable crimes here? That it's very obfuscated.
They're lying. Yeah, they're lying
you
to
could
the
just
American
find
public.
thousands of so-called penal codes that say, well, this case and that case, you could get to, go to prison here, go to prison there. So what's going on?
They're lying. They're flat out lying. The court has been very clear that it's the president and only the president who determines what he takes with him and what he leaves behind. And not even the archivist gets to tell the president what he takes or what he leaves. And this case was referred by the archivist. I think what happened was they wanted to bring some type of Hillary Clinton email-esque scandal case against Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. The case was never meant to be a Florida case. That's why the grand jury was in Washington, D.C. That's why I had to come up here to, I lived in Florida, worked in Florida, met with the president in Florida, met with DOJ in Florida, signed for the documents in Florida, witnessed the raid in Florida. All of my involvement was in Florida. Yet I got summoned to D.C. Why? And I kept asking, why? What does Washington, D.C. have to do with any of this? I didn't think any of it was a crime. But whether it was or wasn't, it certainly wasn't a crime in Washington, D.C. What are they doing? But I think they thought that if they just raided Mar-a-Lago, if we could just get in there, if we could just get those documents, we would be able to piece together a crime. We would be able to show that Donald Trump is guilty. All we need is an indictment.
Hammer looking for a nail theory, basically.
Yeah, totally.
The issue of jurisdiction is something, of course, that you and any honest lawyer knows very well. It seemed like this was a pattern, though, like in the New York case, the Stormy Daniels case, when they were trying to suggest that Trump violated a campaign finance law. What does the state of New York have to do with a federal campaign finance law, which they were interpreting incorrectly anyway?
So, completely. But the crazy part about it is they did not have enough probable cause to get an indictment in Washington, D.C. The grand jury was in Washington, D.C., but they didn't put the question to the grand jury because they knew they didn't have probable cause of any crime. They wanted to charge him in D.C. They didn't want to have to move the case to Florida, but there was no way they were going to get an indictment in Washington, D.C. because there was no evidence of a crime. And so they were forced to move it to Florida and create this stupid obstruction of justice charge that everybody knew wasn't going to work because he was entitled to have everything that he had. He was in lawful possession of all of his records. But they had to bring something because by this point they'd raided Mar-a-Lago. They were going through all the documents and went, well, shoot, we don't have a crime here. And so they had to create something else in Florida, and of course it fell apart. But
what is the
let me show the audience how honest you are, Christina.
Okay, good.
I don't read books all that much, so I might be mistaken about this, but I think you did something that's rare, and I loved it. For years, I've been wondering, why do people just accept it when an author in a book or a magazine article or whatever is telling stories about what happened a long time ago? And they're writing these very, very detailed conversations. He said this, she said that. I'm like, nobody could possibly remember that. And I don't understand why people just accept it. But you put something in the beginning of your book, which we're flashing on the screen right now. And you admit that, well, no, it may not be verbatim. You took notes close to when it happened. Is that, am I right that that's rare, or do I just don't read books enough to know that people make that kind of a disclaimer?
No, I do think it's rare. It was important for me to do it for a few reasons. One, I am still a criminal defendant as we speak. And so if I'm lying or if I'm wrong about anything, all of it can be used against me to throw me in prison. So that's how confident I am in what I'm saying in this book. But the reality is I also don't want to, bring more charges against me or whatever. So I had to be honest and say, hey, look, this is my best effort to relay everything. I took very detailed notes. I am a lawyer. At the time, I knew that there was going to be litigation involved in this. I knew I would either be a witness or a defendant. I didn't know what role I was going to play. And so immediately after it happened, I recorded everything. Same day, days after, I recorded every conversation.
Yeah, that's the best you can do. Yeah. Unless you're some freak of nature with the world's greatest memory, or it was actually recorded with a camera or something,
No, it's funny that you say that because I recorded it as it was happening for my lawyer. Everything that you're reading is basically the notes that I gave to my lawyer, cleaned up a little bit, but I hadn't read it. I couldn't put it out. I wasn't allowed to publish it until the case was over. The case wasn't over until Donald Trump won the election. And then, I needed his permission. And so I didn't really get to compile the book to put out for everybody until the end of 2024, beginning of 2025. And so I went back to my notes and pulled all together. And I, of course, reread it. And there was so much in there that I forgot about. And I was like, oh, thank God I wrote that down. Like, that's good. So,
now, you mentioned that you're a criminal defendant. I think that's the only case that's still pending against you, right? This is in Arizona, and you were, was this the defamation? No,
this is the alternate electors case. The one that was just thrown out. I loved that
in
shout
Michigan.
Out.
In Michigan.
In Michigan just got thrown out. So hopefully Arizona will follow soon.
So it's Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Georgia. So it's Michigan of those that has fallen. And I forget which one was the model. But
Michigan.
I think Michigan was the model, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a carbon copy then in all of these different states.
Everything should fall apart after that. But
that attorney general we saw in the video looks like a real charmer.
That's defamation. I love that clip. If you don't mind sharing that clip with me, any of those electors could sue her for defamation because she cannot do that as the attorney general. The judge threw it out saying there's no appearance of a crime. And then she goes on television or streaming saying they're all still criminals. You cannot do that. They can hold her accountable for defamation. And I hope they do.
Yeah, actually, the judge specifically said that there is those 16 people believe themselves that they had a right to challenge the election, and therefore she did not herself, the judge, believe that there was sufficient evidence to prove intent. And Newsweek, by the way, this has the prosecutor making a similar claim, again, the AG actually in Michigan, just like on that video. So my thing on Arizona and these other states that you began to talk about was the Kennedy versus Nixon thing in 1960. Yeah. The file that they signed back then is available on the internet, and I found that Politico had a story about it, and it's so interesting. They actually said in the Politico article that the Kennedy Democrats tried to do the same thing that Trump is doing.
No, he did.
But I'm saying Trump is doing what they did, what Kennedy did.
Yeah.
Not the other way around.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I was like, I read it 3 times. I was like, how in the world did Kennedy know?
They went back in time. It's a time machine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So these articles were written and they kept saying fake.
And they weren't fake. They were legitimate electors.
Yeah, it's just a contingency in case Trump wins his legal fight. Yeah,
that's right. They were required by law to sign the certification on December 14th. I'm sorry, to sign their elector votes, their ballot on December 14th. That's the Electoral Count Act. You're required by law to do that. But on September 14th, all of those states had open litigation. They were challenging the results of the election. Right. And so if they wanted to be able to cast those votes later, they had to have a ballot that complied with federal law, which requires you to sign it on December 14th. So they all met on December 14th to sign it for the purpose of preserving their ability to cast that ballot later, should the litigation be successful. Now, in the Kennedy-Nixon election, the Kennedy electors created that ballot, and then he won and they cast it. So it actually worked in 1960. This was not I hope maybe this is how you do it. No, it had actually been done before. So the whole story back in 2020, when it was happening, and then all of the defamation that they have done to all of us for the last 4 years, it's a complete lie. It is a complete lie, and they know it because it has historic precedent, it has legal precedent, and it's legally required.
In 1960, they also finished the recount in December of that year.
Yeah.
The recount in Arizona didn't complete until June of the following year. Yeah. And I'm thinking about justice, this whole idea of justice being swift and speedy and so forth. How is it that they can even just keep these cases going on and on and on?
Well, that's part of the strategy with the way elections have been going, if they successfully cheat, not just Republicans, Democrats too, we just don't have not a good process. We just don't have a realistic way to challenge the results of that election, because 2020 was so horrible that all of the judges, including the Supreme Court, I mean, Chief Justice Roberts was heard screaming, "No, we can't hear Texas v. Pennsylvania." Like, all of the judges just got really scared, and we're just like, "Oh, we're not going to change anything." And so whoever successfully cheats in these elections, there's not really a way to challenge it right now. I'm hoping that all gets rectified. But
And half the time they don't even care, I don't think, if they win, because the idea is just to have it hanging over Trump's head.
No,
or yours, or
that's exactly right. They don't
whomever.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's like Russiagate. Like, it really takes 2 years to find out that nothing happened.
Yeah.
I think I knew that on day 2. Now, let me ask you, I'm only a fake lawyer, Christina, unlike you. You're a real lawyer. So this might be a crazy analogy. But I've always wondered about the Steve Bannon case. It seems to me like it's analogous to this elector thing and the contingency aspect of it. And what I mean by that is he got a letter, I guess, from Trump's lawyer saying that Trump was asserting executive privilege, meaning that Bannon is not to talk about what went on between Bannon and Trump. And it seemed to me that Bannon was then in the position of saying, okay, until it's resolved, whether or not it's executive privilege, I shouldn't have to testify because you can't unring the bell.
Right.
But yet he went to prison.
Yeah. There were several issues with it. I mean, and I mentioned this in the book too. The subpoena, well, I didn't specifically mention Bannon and Navarro, but it's true for both of them. The January 6th committee was never lawfully constituted. It was never a lawful congressional committee. So they never should have had subpoena power because they weren't an actual.
I think that's
committee.
the issue he emphasizes. Right?
And so Bannon was saying he did assert executive privilege, but he was also saying this isn't a legitimate subpoena. This is not a legitimate committee. It's not formed lawfully. I'm not complying with it. And he never was allowed to even make that argument. They just said, they basically said, no, you can't make that argument. You're guilty.
Well, as I recall, he didn't show up in court. I remember some people saying that if he had shown up in court, there might have been a different result.
Oh, what good grief. Give me a break. You think I'm sorry, I don't mean to be, I'm not saying that to you.
It's all right.
But like, I mean,
it's not me who's saying it. They say that. You're mocking them, not me.
Yes, that's right. And I absolutely love Steve Bannon. He's fantastic. But like, we all know Bannon. You think if Bannon walks into a DC court, they're going to go, oh, I have pity on him. Right. No, not
that they would have pity on him, but that was procedurally required. That's what I've heard people assert. That
I mean, if he had counsel, unless he skipped his arraignment. I mean, I doubt he skipped his arraignment. Maybe he did. I don't know. Yeah. But once you're arraigned, your counsel can appear for you.
Right.
You know.
All right. Well, anyway, we're here to talk about you, not Steve Bannon.
I love Steve Bannon, though, and he's a good topic, so it's okay.
He's a very interesting character.
He really is.
I watch his podcast quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
I saw you on it.
Yes, I was on earlier this week. Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
About this book too. Now, you also talk significantly about Rudy Giuliani, whom you're a co-defendant with.
Yeah.
In the book. Again, I before the show, I was talking to you about how there's the film on Hunter Biden's laptop by Igor Lopatinok, and he's in the film. Rudy is in the film, and he goes through extensively the whole criminality on the Burisma, and he. I mean, you really kind of show that he has an impeccable record and his whole career has been destroyed.
Completely destroyed. And they destroyed it because he had that information and they were trying to discredit him before he could really get it out. And quite honestly, they were successful. You know, they went to work to try to destroy Rudy's credibility, which is so horrific to watch because he is such a smart, good man, and he's got the goods. You know, he has it. He uncovered it, and they were able to discredit him before he could really put it out there. Excuse me.
So one question on that: you gave this stuff, as you talk about in the book, to Lindsey Graham, and you only said a little bit about Lindsey Graham.
Well, Rudy gave it to him.
Rudy did. I'm sorry. You know what? In my notes, I actually quoted that Rudy did it. So. You said a little bit about Lindsey Graham. What do you think about people like this guy? He's a Republican, everybody says, you know?
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Lindsey Graham. I think he needs to go, but I don't know. He is a powerful Republican senator who is protecting other powerful senators. I don't know why. And Rudy said, I took the information to Lindsey Graham. He didn't do anything with it. He refused to do anything with it. He said he would never, he would never expose it because Joe Biden was a senator.
Right.
And
it's a club. Like it's a club. We don't do something.
We don't expose
against
each other.
The club. Yeah.
And I asked Rudy, I said, is that what it was? Was it like a gentleman's agreement? And Rudy didn't speculate. He's like, I don't know. That's just what he said. So I don't know.
Well, towards the end of the book, you make some suggestions about how we could improve, eliminate corruption and so forth moving forward. And one of the things that you say that you see as a key solution is some kind of legislation. Obviously, Lindsey Graham would not be your ally on that, but
correct.
I don't know if we need to talk about who your ally would be, but I guess I'm more interested in what kind of legislation do you have in mind?
Well, I raised the issue of legislation just because I don't think Democrats are going to impeach the judges doing their dirty work. And I was saying we need to impeach these judges because, I mean, they're hurting our country. But in order to impeach a judge, you've got to have 66 votes in the Senate, which we don't have. And so if we're not going to get an impeachment, then the lesser alternative is to pass legislation to limit the reach of these district courts, kind of basically legislate one of the Supreme Court rulings saying these district courts are limited to the parties in front of them. Or, somehow neuter these district courts because they're out of control. They're just absolutely out of control.
Right.
Well, they're going beyond their rights as judges. Isn't that what you'd say? Because somebody's going to misinterpret what you're saying oh, see, you want to be able to hide more things. Believe I have arguments with people all the time. They're just they're obsessive about this. So that's why I say that.
Okay. And I don't want to be misunderstood. So I'm sorry. I don't.
The point is that they have a limited set of functions, right? Again, let me think about Arizona. You were called to come to Arizona while you're in Florida.
Yes,
totally
they're going beyond their jurisdiction.
And they're going way beyond their jurisdiction. So the issue that you're really talking about is you have to keep them in their jurisdiction.
Yes, in their purview. Or, and that's what legislation is. Or change the jurisdiction, right? The judges are limited by what Congress authorizes them, at least the district courts. The district courts are not constitutional courts. They're allowed due to legislation, not because the Constitution says we have to have 900 district courts or whatever the heck it is. So Congress can dictate the limits of these district courts, and that's kind of what I'm throwing out there. The chances of Congress actually coming together and doing that are slim to none because of Republicans. Republicans are the problem, but it could happen. And I think I say it in the book. I'm like, if Republicans don't actually get this stuff under control, every single one of them needs to be primaried. I don't care if they're Republicans and they say the right things on TV. I agree with their policy positions that they put out publicly. If they don't actually do the job, get them out.
All right. Well, I know you have another interview coming up soon.
Yes.
If you have time for a little lightning round, I wanted to just quickly ask you. Everybody knows about the intel community, the media, the judicial system. There's one other segment of our society that I think are serious culprits, and that would be your brethren, or actually you're not doing it anymore, but you were a legal analyst. But legal analysts on the TV shows, on some of the websites, they, I think, would you agree, are a scurrilous bunch? And it's like, it's insidious and it's consequential because it's what affects public opinion.
Yeah.
People think that they're telling the truth, but they're not. Would you agree?
Broadly, I think lawyers by trade, and I hate saying this because I am a lawyer, but I think lawyers are very weak, risk averse. By nature, their job is to avert risk for their clients. And I think they're just weak.
Yeah,
I
but
think-
these aren't what I'm talking about is not lawyers who represent their clients, because I actually would understand them their clients. Their client is the public. Well, I'm talking about the TV lawyers, not when you're representing a client and you go on. Here, let's name some names. Will you give me a 5-second comment on some of these people that I'm talking about?
Sure.
All right. Are you nervous?
Yeah, I don't know who you're going to say.
I'm nervous.
Dahlia Lithwick, Slate.
Oh, I don't know her. Who is she?
All right, that's fair. Dan Abrams,
Oh,
ABC.
He works for ABC. He's got to toe the party line.
All right. Glenn Kirshner, NBC and MSNBC.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime, I guess I'm now understanding your point. Anytime you have someone on one of these networks, they care more about the message that the network wants put out rather than an actual independent analysis.
Okay, I would say this guy's a terrible person. You're nicer than I am. Though. Ari Melber. He's smug, but
I don't
harmless,
know,
right?
Ari.
Greg Jarrett, Fox News.
I like Greg. I think I would say he's probably more risk averse than I am. But I like him. I think he means well. I think he tries to, call balls and strikes.
Jeffrey Toobin, CNN.
Oh, gosh, I have only seen him a few times. I don't know.
Oh my God. Okay.
Right.
Mike
Oh,
Davis.
I love Mike Davis. Mike Davis is a friend of mine, so I'm biased, but I think he's fantastic.
Okay. Robert Barnes.
I don't know Robert Barnes. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Don't be sorry. Alan Dershowitz.
Alan
Evergreen
Dershowitz, I think, is pretty good. I think he has more faith in politics. Probably he comes from the generation before me, so I think he.
Yeah,
has
some
more
of these
faith
guys
in it.
really comment about sort of the intersection of law and politics.
Yeah, and-
like Andy McCarthy. He's
oh
coming up.
God, Norm Eisen.
Terrible
He's
person, right?
Terrible person.
All right. Don't worry. There's only 30 more of these now. There's
Okay.
30 more. Andy McCarthy.
I actually like Andy. I think he's good.
Yeah, I do too. He's one of my favorites.
Jonathan
There he
Turley is also really good.
Yeah. National treasure, I would say.
Yep.
Terrible person. Do you know her?
I don't
Asha
know
Rangappa.
her. Mm-mm.
Take my word for it. She's a terrible person.
Okay.
And lastly, Barbara McQuaid.
I don't know her, but she looks like we wouldn't get along.
All right. The book is Defiant, Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. You can buy it at civilknights.com. It's a great book. We could talk to you all night long, Christina. But
It's been great. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks for reading the book. I hope it was a good read.
It was very good.
It was
Friend and foe should read
fantastic.
it. That's what I think.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Take care, Christina. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, well, too bad she couldn't stick around longer. We had so much we wanted to say to her.
Well, at the end of the book, she said something very interesting about what do you do about the situation and how do you approach it. And I really like what she said. She said, we need justice to show mercy to our political foes rather than extracting retribution. And she said that she believes there could be a strong argument for mercy. That's how we ensure that we don't burn our nation to the ground. But she said mercy can only be given when there's repentance and no threat for future harm. So you have to have an admission of guilt from the perpetrators of injustice and a desire to change course so that that threat dissipates, basically. So I thought that at the end,
I agree completely. In other words, mercy's great, but these bastards don't deserve it.
well, I mean, they have to.
No.
They have to.
Well, she said it in several
fine.
ways. She said somebody has to go to jail. That was another thing she said.
That's true. That's true. And I think this thing in Michigan is going to be the start of just kind of people seeing, hey, this was all a lie every step of the way. What happened?
Did you know that? Did you? No, I was just thinking back when she said she wants that video that I showed.
That's
so
right.
I think I'm going to be a witness now in a defamation case.
That's okay.
How did you get that? Oh,
It's on.
I'm
it's
scared
on-
after
It's on Newsweek too. It's on Newsweek 2 days ago.
No, I'm just kidding. But after reading everything that she did that was so innocent, yet it somehow got into big trouble and caused all kinds of expense and who knows.
Well, also I keep thinking about how much money all of this costs, and I'm sort of torn to the or tied to the situation in Arizona. I think about that because that's where my mother ran in the Democratic primaries for Congress in the 90s, won the Democratic primary, and then the Democratic Party unleashed hell to destroy her campaign. And again, it's this, the level of sophistication is nothing like the last 8-10 years, since the 2016, really. But it's interesting, in her book, she also talked about how some of these people who created the situation in Arizona to go after her, and again, she wasn't actually involved in anything related to the Arizona.
Yeah, you got to buy
election.
this book. It's totally mind blowing.
She was not. She was just mentioned on a phone call, or a text message. Somebody said, "Hey, how about Christina?" And it turns out that there was a whole grouping of these nonprofit organizations and so forth who said
they're so evil. But the one thing that, at least it's the only example I remember from the book where the lawyers were talked into acting like human beings, was the Dominion case. Dominion sued her for defamation for $1.6 billion. I love that. Like, did they sit around and, well, is it 1.4 billion or $1.6 billion? And she didn't do anything. She was a reporter. She just said what somebody else said. She didn't even say anything that was close to defamation. And her lawyer was trying to get them for a while to drop her from the case. Right. And then eventually they did. That was the only sign of decency, but I'm not going to give them too much credit, because why the hell did they sue her to begin with for $1.6 billion?
Well, she is not somebody who pulls her punches. She's not risk averse. I mean, the whole story.
No, she's not. And that was one of the points in the book, that, the idea they do this is to intimidate people. They went after everybody associated with Trump to scare people out of being associated with him. But I don't think anybody in Trump world caved.
No, nobody caved at all.
Bannon went to prison. Peter Navarro went to prison. They didn't cave. Nobody turned on somebody else, I don't think.
Not that I can think of, actually.
That doesn't mean it wasn't effective. I'm sure people are still scared.
Or ruined financially. Yeah. Or disbarred. I think Giuliani is disbarred.
Yeah, I know. I was going to ask her whether or not he can appeal that. I don't know. The bar is a strange...
I mean, look at again, these people. I mean, I was shocked that the January 6th defendants, a number of them requested to be transferred to Guantanamo Bay because there were more human rights at Guantanamo Bay than where they were being held.
Yeah, I heard that.
It was in the book. It was
I know, but it's a weird
it's like request. It doesn't make any sense, right?
No, I think they might have been making a point. It's like, why would they? The reason to specify, it's like even Guantanamo is better than this place.
It could be that.
I mean, it's hard to imagine that's really where they want to
That's the bar of justice. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But no matter where you are, solitary confinement is considered mental torture. Mm-hmm. People go crazy. They can't even remember what day it is after a while. And this is for a riot? I mean, some of these people didn't even do anything violent.
Yeah, that's true.
They were trespassing, vandals, some violence, but I forgot the exact number, but it's a very small percentage of them were convicted of anything involving violence.
Now, we did have a question, which I didn't get a chance to ask Christina, and maybe you remember from reading the book. I don't think there's anything to this, but H. Scherer said, is there any veracity to the idea that the Mar-a-Lago raid was to get the Nunes memo and its support? I don't remember that memo.
No, I don't remember either. I think they were either going after something in particular. I mean, it wasn't an honest raid. So they were either going after something in particular, or they were just fishing to see what they could find. Yeah. Or, like Christina said, that they were just, giving him grief. The process is the punishment.
Right. I think that's probably it. Well, I mean, and we're still seeing, even with the current events this week, that it's like we have to get our brains back in gear because things seem to be spinning out of control. And that's why I brought up the question of mercy, because and I know you like Cernovich, and I've been reading his thread, and he's
very provocative.
He's got a lot of provocative things, which I don't think are that helpful.
Provocative is a neutral one.
Yeah. So that is that's the thing. And then
I would have liked to talk to her a little bit about the Charlie Kirk assassination. I bet she actually knew him.
She did.
And I wonder if she has any theories about who did it or why it happened. It seemed to be, you're a gun lover. You were telling me when we talked that, it was clearly a pro when you hit somebody from 200 yards away like that. And then the person escaped. We were talking last night on Ask the Inspector with Scott Ritter. He was suggesting, without saying it very much, if we read between the lines, he was suggesting that the fact the guy got away implies that maybe, I guess, some sort of deep state setup or something. I don't know what he meant exactly.
On Charlie Kirk, actually, so in 2024 is when Mark Meadows was indicted by the Arizona grand jury. That's when Rudy Giuliani and Christina Bobb and others were also indicted on the same charges. But apparently, they charge some these Republicans who signed the paperwork on December 14th, 2020, that they say falsely purported Trump was the rightful winner, copying exactly what the Kennedy Democrats did in 1960. So here's the thing that's interesting, though. They said that Turning Point USA, so there's a number of these GOP national committeemen who were also indicted, who were also part of the Turning Point USA, which is Charlie Kirk's organization, I think.
Yeah.
So in other words, it's like, I'm not trying to string things together, but these people all knew each other.
Well, I think that Charlie Kirk was a major threat because he was attracting large amounts of young people to the Republican Party. And I don't think anybody else even comes close to him in that regard.
I mean, he was willing to talk to people too.
Yeah.
So
there's probably no quote unquote replacement, but there's going to be a replacement, or maybe several. So we'll see how the organization sustains itself moving forward.
I mean, there's all kinds of conspiracy things going on, and we are seeing. Hopefully, they catch somebody soon. I think that after 72 hours, it becomes really difficult. But it seems like they're narrowing down. I think Kash Patel has gone to Utah today. So I hope we get somewhere.
All right. Well, should we call it a show, Ryan? What do you think?
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right.
That was great.
Yeah, it was. My only regret is we didn't have more time, but I understand. Christine had another interview. So thanks to Christine for joining us. Thanks to our beloved audience. Let's just remind folks that they can get the book at civilknights.com, which is the Whiners Substack. And while you're there, why don't you subscribe to us, for crying out loud? It's free.
That's right.
Would it kill you? Would it kill you to support us? Come on. All right. We'll be back next week. We don't have anybody booked for next Thursday, do we?
Not yet. I don't think so. No.
All right, but we'll be here. Morgan had a family get-together tonight, so we miss you, Morgan, and hopefully you'll be back next week. Take care, everybody.
All right.